Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back in the episode of Hobby Side. And on today's video, I usually don't do two videos a day. However, though, today when I was looking at the Warhammer Community's page, I saw this announcement they have for the brand new Necromunda Core Rulebook that they're actually planning on releasing later this year for Necromunda as well. So I saw this announcement, I thought it looked really cool, and we're going to talk about this real quick and talk about exactly what's coming down the pike. It says Necromunda is a fantastically tense narrative game set among the hellish hive cities of the ruined planet of Necromunda, which gangs of colorful desperados battle for scraps and dodge searing bolts of plasma in an impossibly hostile environment. That's pretty cool so far. Last year, our gangs burst out of the Underhive and onto the ash waste, bringing ramshackle vehicles into environments that are somehow even more hostile than the Hive into play. Add that to the combined weight of many other supplements, expansions, and downloads, you can have a recipe for a sprawling set of rules in dire need of consolidation, which is where the new Necromunda Core Rulebook comes in. So I think this is actually kind of nice. Having everything be in one giant tome is actually quite nice. I know one of the problems of playing Necromunda for a lot of players is having this library of books that you need to bring with you to games and etc. Now for me it's not much of a problem because all the books I purchase are digital books, so I don't really have to take up a lot of space in my bookshelves in order to do so. I find the digital copies are actually quite easier and more convenient. Whenever I play a game, my friends and we play in my office where I turn into my gaming studio where we actually play, and I have a desktop computer right there, and we just actually pull up the rule books and just leave them up on the desktop while we play so that we can check it every time we want to, so it doesn't take up any space. So that's why it's not a big deal for me to actually have another book, because I do everything digitally anyways. However, I can see this being as something as like upsetting for some players, because people might have bought the digital books or even the hard copy books, and now it's just another book they have to purchase as well. So I do understand how some people might get upset about that as well. Now, continuing with the text, it says, this mighty tome consolidates all the major rules you'll need to play a game in Necromunda, whether it's in the Zone Mortalis, Sector Mechanicus, or the Ash Waste. It consolidates all the actions you have to take, all the vehicle rules, all the weapons traits in one place, and it still makes time to slide in a bunch of updates, clear up some confusion, and grant XP for seriously injuring somebody. Here are some of our favorite changes. Now, one of the things that drew my attention to this book is, if it was just a consolidation of books, and that's all it was, I could probably care less, like I said before. But some of the things that drew my attention were some of the changes they made, and that's what actually drew my attention on this little community page announcement. So first of all, it says that the black market and the trade posts are now one and the same. Visiting the store between battles is now a single action. Black market items are rarer, hard to acquire, and often illegal, but you don't need a separate book to acquire them because they're all published in full at the back of this one. So that part is extremely convenient. Having to judge between multiple books to do the different markets is pretty rough, especially if they're going to combine all of them now. So if they have like the marketplaces from the book apparel, for example, in the Outlands, and they take the normal trading post and then the ash waste post and the black market, make it one giant one, that is super convenient. I cannot explain to you how much that of convenience is. Even with just the digital books, instead of having 4 or 5 windows open, we could just have the one, which would be kind of nice as well. But what really drew my attention was the changes to XP. So let's talk about that real quick. So you earn experience points for inflicting a serious injury. It says a ganger now earns 1 XP for every time they nail someone hard enough to leave them face first in the dirt. That reward is doubled if they send immediately out of action, and they can also earn XP if they help a teammate recover from a serious injury, which is just as well as each injury roll now counts as a flesh wound. So that is also cool as well. It says serious injuries are now much more lethal. Every roll, whether it's in recovery at the end of a turn or at an especially painful shot to the face, also now causes a flesh wound. And those flesh wounds mount up fast. On a plus side, a critically injured fighter is less likely to take a permanent injury if they are stabilized on a visit to the dock after the battle. So that is really cool as well. So one of the cool things about the game mechanics on this one is the serious injury. You could have a situation where a fighter is seriously injured, let's say at the opening of the turn, and they just sit there and they just bleed out and they don't do anything for the entire battle, and they're just kind of laying around doing nothing. What I like about that is the serious injury is now much more critical, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's much more, well, I guess serious now, because you get, it looks like what they're going to do is you're going to get a flesh wound every turn. So eventually you will just, drop out because of, as anyone knows who plays the game, if you have more flesh wounds than you have toughness, you automatically go out of action. So that's really a neat game mechanic on that one too. It also kind of narrowly fits too. Like you can imagine the guy laying on the ground slowly bleeding out from their serious injury if they don't get taken care of. So I think that's kind of a cool mechanic right there as well. Plus, getting that additional XP for the serious injury is really nice as well. There'd be nothing more frustrating than taking a shot at a dude and the guy is out for the entire game with a serious injury, but you get no experience for it, or they go out of action after the fact in the recovery phase and you get no XP for that, which is actually kind of nice as well, because anyone knows getting XP in this game is usually very difficult, especially when you get those higher tiered rewards for your fighters as well. I used to remember there was a joke that they used to say, like, juvies, if they get 5 or more advancements, they can become champions later on by the time the midterm actually happened for the middle of a campaign. And then, you know, people are just like, well, I'll just wait to the middle of the campaign in most cases, because then they can just level up that way. So that's kind of interesting how they do that. I think that's kind of neat. I like that little change that they did with the serious injury table. Just serious injury rule. Another one here says you could choose a secondary skill for 12 XP, which is nice. The secondary skill table was for a long time the preserve of gamblers and people who didn't properly read the rules, but now there's this meaningful use for your guys' secondary skill access. You can pick up the skill you want for just 12 XP, which is kind of nice, because if you get those serious injury XPs added up, which would be really cool, that would really help out as well. At the same time too, you also get that to help you out to level up your fighters better. I think that's kind of nice as well, because let's face it, for the longest time for a lot of players, the secondary skill tree was just kind of like, you're never going to make enough XP to get that anyway, so no one ever took the secondary skills seriously, but this one actually looks like you might be able to do so. So that part is kind of nice as well. It says certain skills have also been improved. It says it's safe to say that some of the original core skills are less favorable than the rest. You think? The likes of Headbutt, Iron Jaw, and Hurl have been substantially improved, while Overseer now requires a leadership test to function. That is actually nice. There's a lot of interesting skills in this game that are actually quite useless when you look at the ways that the rules that are written. So having this changes is going to be really nice to see that, especially if they've improved a lot of the skills as well. Now, Overseer, the requiring a leadership test, I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, everyone knows Overseer is a very powerful ability, and taking a leadership test to make sure you can take that Overseer ability off before you can actually use it, I think that's a good rule change, actually, because Overseer is a leadership skill. The leadership stat needs to be used. Unfortunately, I think Mentor is the only other skill in the entirety of Necromunda that uses a leadership test, I think. And that's to give your fighters additional XP whenever they earn one. So that's something I think is kind of nice. I think leadership has been really underutilized in this game. Intelligence actually is actually used a lot more. Willpower is definitely important now, same thing with cool, but leadership has just been kind of fallen by the wayside, and I think that's really going to be helpful now to see that. I really hope what ends up happening is that you see bonuses for leadership, the stats being more important, and I'll talk about that later on in the video. And then what's another thing cool here, what I like is cool, is the impressive scars and bitter enmity are back. Now these are old, well, I'll talk about that in a second. It says there's a new lasting injury table, and it comes with a lot more flavor, or more accurate, there's a much older lasting injury table, which harks back to the 1995 version of the game, edition of the game, allowing your fighters to collect scars, rivalries, and old battle wounds, as well as the old regular dismemberments and lessons learned. So this is really nice. Back in the day, the 1995 version of Necromunda, you could actually see this. I actually have a video series called the Tales from the Underhive, which is a whole campaign set using the old 1995 Community Edition rules for a campaign. The injury table was much more fleshed out than it is in this current edition of the game. You would have things like hand injuries, which would impact your weapon skill, arm injuries, which would impact your strength. You would also have, what was another one as well? Enfeebling injury is the same. You lost toughness. Eye injury, you lost a point to your ballista skill. For example, leg injury, you lose a point in your movement characteristics. Impressive scars, which would actually give you boost to your leadership ability, your leadership stat is what you would get for those. Or you also have like horribly disfigured, which means your character causes fear, for example, was another cool injury. Bitter enmity was also neat too, because that means that your character has hatred towards the guy that shot at them or caused them to have that injury, which could also build this really cool narrative backstory in your campaign as you developed. So if you ran into that gang again with that particular fighter, and your fighter has that bitter enmity injury, they will go after that guy pell-mell with hatred. So it's kind of cool. So I hope they bring back a lot of those injury tables. Don't get me wrong, the injury table on the current Necromunda is neat, but this is much cooler in my opinion, and it makes it last a lot longer. Also, in the older edition too, you would actually record your injuries as well, because injuries would stack over time. So I think that's another nice thing that they'll actually bring back with that one as well. So that is really, really cool too. And let's see here. Let's go down to our impressive. So we're talk about hit penalties applied for certain tricky actions. Certain combat activities have been made a little bit harder to do. If there was one thing to target someone with a frag grenade launcher, but a lot harder to aim at a point on the field. So that now gets a -2 penalty to hit. Likewise, charging someone you can't see puts a disadvantage of -1 hit as well. There's just a snapshot of some of the many changes, small but important quality of life changes made in this rulebook. In short, this is the essential tone for any player, and now you'll really only need to bring this book and your chosen gang special rules, that's kind of nice, to any dust up within the Inner Hive or without. It'll be up for pre-order shortly, and there's much more to come from Necromunda, but Lady Hera is breathing down our neck and we can't say any more yet. So this is kind of nice. I really like the idea that they put all the rules in one book. That's kind of nice for a lot of players. That way they can just use this one book, and then your players can bring their gang books with them for themselves, and that really makes things really nice and convenient for people. The thing that I really like to see here, though, are some of the changes that are taking place here as well. Same thing with the idea that if you actually help out our teammate to recover from a serious injury, like you give bonuses to help out, you get XP for that. That's a really nice change up right there. Same thing with the change in the injury rules. Serious injury rules. I really like how they did that as well. It looks like, well, based on what I see here where they talk about the new ability to get secondary skills, it looks like they're giving you a lot more options to earn experience in this game for your fighters, which is really nice to see, because anyone who's ever played a campaign in Necromunda before knows it's really hard to level up your fighters, and so this is going to be neat to see these things. I'm really excited to see exactly what they do for that one. Same thing with these change in skills. I'm really looking forward to see exactly what ways they make or improve the skills tables for the different skills, because let's face it, a lot of the skills are kind of useless they have in the game. There's only actually really a handful of really important ones, but having that hopefully that'll make it more competitive, make it more viable options now for gangs. I really want to see leadership playing a bigger role, that stat playing a bigger role with this change-up, which is kind of nice as well. And then I'm really looking forward to these serious injuries that we're getting now, the different changes to that. I think that'd be really neat and a lot of narrative flavor to the campaign as well. So there you guys have it. This is the overview for the new core rulebook. I think it's kind of nice that we're consolidating all of this and also making improvements, which I think is really exciting to see in future updates for Necromunda. It also means that Games Workshop is still looking forward to supporting Necromunda, which is absolutely fantastic as well. And I'm really excited to see what kind of changes they want to make. So with that being said, let's bring it to you. What do you guys think? What do you feel about this new core rulebook? Do you like some of the changes? Do you not like it? What other changes would you like to see in the rules? Personally, for me, a big change I think that needs to happen is for the bottle test, to be perfectly honest with you. Back in the day for the 1995 version of Necromunda, what happened was that if your gang suffered 25% more casualties, either fighters out of action or fighters are seriously injured, your leader would have to take a leadership test, and if they failed that leadership test, they would have to bottle out at that point. I think that's a lot cooler to use instead of doing this weird, like you roll a d6 and add stuff and all kinds of weird things. But that's why leadership was so important, and why having a leader was also so important in the game, and why leadership skills were also so important in that game as well. In fact, if I remember correctly, one of the most coveted leadership skills allowed you to re-roll leadership tests for bottle tests. So that was like a really important skill that you would have for your leader. But that's just me personally. But what kind of changes would you like to see? What would kind of different changes would you like to see in the rules or updates, that sort of thing? Please put it down in the comments box below. That'd be really awesome. I'll also put a poll up on my channel as well, seeing if you like these changes or not. And so please feel free to participate in that one as well. So that's good for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.